Hey guys, it's Matt Wenning at winningstrength.com, and today we're going to talk again, part 2, about factors limiting strength production. This is a really interesting video because we want to get as strong as we can, and in the second video, this is going to imply a little bit more on how to train smarter, so stay tuned. Alright, so one of the biggest factors, and we're going to start this video off, and this is going to be most of our topic today, is in factors limiting strength production is fatigue. This is why it's so important to train insanely smart, okay? Fatigue has a lot to do with both neurologically and physiologically how hard you can train and make positive progress. So we have two different types of fatigue. Alright, so fatigue is broken down into two sections. We have central, which I call central nervous system fatigue, right? So that's actually the spinal cord and brain just not being able to fire that strong of a pulse. Now there's some chemical reasons in fatigue why this happens. We'll dive into it a little bit, but I don't find it that interesting. Central nervous system fatigue, in my opinion, is the main controller of everything. When you get mentally burned out from doing something, you're done, no matter how physically capable your body is, okay? And that's why it's important to stay psychologically fresh. Now, one way to do that is to rotate your exercises constantly. We also have this other thing called peripheral fatigue, which is actually fatigue at the muscle cell itself with the actin and myosin cross bridges. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. But the point is, I want you guys to understand that accumulation of fatigue can actually cause your training to go backwards. And that's why it's so important to calculate, study, and also take very seriously your restoration properties. Because the more you can keep fatigue at bay, the better off you will be at being super strong and actually have your training have a positive effect. So what we don't want to do is go to the gym for an hour, 2 hours, and then have it be a negative effect and not help us at all the next day, the next week, the next month, or the next year. And how we do that is by following and starting to figure out what the body can withstand and what it can actually adapt to. So as we know now, we have central and peripheral, right? Central is the actual spark plug to the muscle, having fatigue, which is very real. A lot of it's through decreased motivation, spine nerve impulse, right? So some of that gets messed up if we don't have optimal recovery. The other thing we have is peripheral, which is actually at the muscle. We have low and high frequency at 20 and 50 hertz. If you guys want to look that up, there's in super training, they have some studies on that. Now, what this basically does is that if we have high hertz fatigue or low hertz fatigue, it really doesn't matter. It causes some depolarization at the actual cell level, and primary site fatigue at the muscle is the motor end plate, sarcoplasmic reticulum, and regulatory and contractile proteins. So as those start messing up because you're constantly overtraining, what it's going to start increasing and doing is the fatigue level will rise, and now your contraction, no matter how neurologically excited you are or how your training is going to be dropping. I find that understanding how to optimize your training is going to equate to around a 10 to 15% increase or decrease depending on how well you know your body. And what I mean by that is that how much of this fatigue stuff are you taking into a 24-hour consideration? This means that in the fatigue setting, if you're not looking at your training in a 24-hour particular scenario, as in I'm eating correctly, I'm sleeping correctly, I'm going to bed at the right time, I'm avoiding blue light, I'm not around electronics after say 8 p.m. All of these things are either going to help or hurt this fatigue scenario. So what I hope you guys are starting to understand in this video is that strength production and factors limiting are starting to become more and more external to the actual load. Fatigue, in my opinion, is directly correlated with either being super fit, right, building a strong base and then getting strong, and or making sure that your rest and your diet is 100% A-okay. So we'll get into some more stuff on factors that are limiting strength production, but the first key is to know the variables in which you're dealing with. So if you guys need more help, get on winningstrength.com, check out some of our manuals where we dive into this fatigue scenario and start really trying to optimize how much we can train. Now we know that a lot of this stuff's individual, meaning that just because I train a certain way doesn't necessarily mean you can use 100% of what I do. But we can get really, really close with people. So go on winningstrength.com and contact us.